I'd like to call to order this meeting of the LAFCO for Monday, August 5th, 2024. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Vice Chair Leary.
Here.
Commissioner Moeller.
Here.
Commissioner Painter.
Here.
Commissioner Ramos.
Here.
Commissioner Gallagher. Here. Commissioner Khan.
Yes.
And Chair Cottrell.
Here.
Let
Thank
the
you.
record reflect we have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any comments or suggestions for changes to the approval? Brendan.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. A quick correction for one of the consent items, item 5B, inadvertently was posted with the incorrect report attached as attachment number 1. Staff apologizes for that error. Copies of the correct report have been provided to the Commission in your supplemental folders and available to the public. And so no need to pull that item from consent, but the Commission certainly may still choose to do so when we get to the consent calendar.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Are there any public comments today, either in the room or on the phones? Nope. Okay, great. Moving right along to our number 5 consent items. We have 1 approval of meeting minutes and then 4 reports for information only. I'll just ask for any public comment on the consent items. Hearing none, I will turn to the Commission and ask for a motion.
I'll move we approve the consent calendar.
Motion by Mueller. There's second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item 6A. Action item proposed Devlin Road number 6 annexation to the Napa Sanitation District and associated CEQA findings. Good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. This annexation has been proposed by the landowner. It involves 1 unincorporated parcel totaling 27.55 acres in size and is being proposed for annexation to the Napa Sanitation District. This is an unincorporated county parcel located just west of Devlin Road and south of Soskull Ferry Road, and it represents a portion of the planned Nova Business Park North project, which will eventually involve a 400,000 square foot light industrial building. And the project will be located on what are now 6 parcels totaling 93.2 acres, but those parcels will be subdivided to create 13 new parcels ranging in size from 2.2 acres to 12.1 acres in size. The entire project area has been planned for industrial land use for over 30 years under the county's Napa Valley Business Park specific plan. The project site is also near the Napa County Airport, with most of the project area being located in Zone C of the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, which is where aircraft will be below 300 feet above ground level. And the remaining portions of the project area are located in Zone D, where aircraft will be about 1,000 feet above ground level to as low as 300 feet above the ground. The proposed annexation in front of the Commission today represents the final piece of annexation that is needed to ensure the entire project has access to public sewer service. And towards this end, Napa Sanitation District has already provided a conditional will serve letter indicating that the district will provide sewer services once the project area is annexed within the district's boundaries. The district also found the project to be in compliance with district master plans. Further, the district's wastewater treatment plant complies with all water quality discharge requirements, and therefore the project will comply with regional water quality control standards and will have a less than significant impact on the environment. The property has been within the sanitation district's sphere of influence since 1975, and that is LAFCO's signal of support for eventual annexation. It's our way of saying we believe this property should eventually be in the district boundary. Water service is an interesting component of this project, as water service will be provided by the City of American Canyon, which does not require LAFCO approval to annex the property into the city, nor does it require an outside service agreement. And this is based on a previous action that LAFCO took in 2007. Staff is happy to provide more information on this if the commission is curious. It's a complex agreement that basically says LAFCO pre-approves outside service to any property within the airport industrial area within the county. And so this is how developments are approved within this area. They typically do receive water from American Canyon without having to come through LAFCO. And now the county is the lead agency for this project under CEQA and has accordingly prepared an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration covering this property, and that is found as attachment 4 to your staff report. The county's initial study and mitigated negative declaration found there will not be a significant effect on the environment in this case because revisions in the project have been made by or agreed to by the project proponent addressing those. And so with all of this in mind, staff recommends the commission approve the proposed annexation and make your required CEQA findings by way of adopting attachment number 1, which is a draft resolution. Staff is happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions from the commission? Ms. Khan.
I have a question. The request for map sanitation is both for access from recycled water. So is there enough? I mean, I can't see there's a lot of green space here. So I didn't know that American Canyon was serving them. I thought that the reclaimed water was coming from Napa Sands. So you have any information on that?
Good question, Commissioner Khan. My understanding is the reclaimed water would be for things like landscaping, and that the public water from the City of American Canyon would be for any potable needs within the building itself. Great question, and I don't have full confidence that I have the details quite right, but I can look into that and follow up if you'd like.
Yeah, because as I was reading through it, I guess I didn't catch the American Canyon part. So I thought that they were using that water, that if it was mostly warehouse, that they might, be able to use that reclaimed water. The other thing I found out is that there were previous issues on this, not this specific piece, but the whole Nova Park, and that has been resolved. And as best I understand, that they agreed to make some modifications in this to support any environmental issues. So I checked with my environmental people who said that they did not have a problem with this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I'm happy to make a motion if there are any questions.
Okay, great. Commissioner Ramos, do you have a question?
Sorry, I wanted to make a comment first, which is mostly first to council. I believe we do have to make Levine Act disclosures in regards to this.
This and all other applications too.
Okay.
Yes. So
So-
I'm happy to give unless you go for it.
If you would please go first, and then I'll go second.
Sure. So what the commissioner is referring to is Levine Act for contributions to your campaign committee or to you personally if you haven't raised or spent the $2,000 to create a committee yet, of more than $250 require disclosures and recusals within 12 months on either side of that campaign contribution. So you should be thinking about this, not just for this, but for all. So now's a good time for that reminder. So if there is a particular campaign contribution within the 12 months looking back, and it also disqualifies you going forward, commissioners should disclose that and then not participate or vote on this matter.
Thank you so much. Now, with Chair's approval, I'll go ahead. I received a campaign contribution of $2,000 in November of 2023 from Ron Frederick, which is the owner of Nova Business Park. Because we had a noticed matter before the Board of Supervisors, I did return that contribution within 30 days of that notice, and that contribution was returned in April of 2024, allowing me to vote on this matter, and it has been reflected on my most recent Form 460, which was filed on July 31st last week.
I will also make a Levine Act disclosure that I received a donation of $500 from Ron Frederick, and I returned it within 30 days of the receipt of the donation. Anyone else?
I'll go ahead and make the same disclosure from Ron Frederick in 2023, $500, and return that. I think it was in February of this year.
I actually thank you for bringing that up because I hadn't had it on my radar. I also received a campaign donation. I'm looking at the date. It was April of this year, $500. I have not returned it, so I will recuse myself.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, and I think Commissioner Moeller, would you restate your motion?
And I haven't taken any campaign donations, so from anybody ever. All right, I will make a motion that we approve the annexation of Devlin Road number 6 into the Napa Sanitation District.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Point of order. I believe it's a recusal, not an abstention.
Yes, yeah, I think that's
And
probably.
it needs to actually, the minutes need to actually say recusal consistent with Levine Act procedures.
I agree.
Your job, not mine. Sorry.
So, Gary, is that if this comes up in the future, does anybody have to leave the room before we even start discussing this, or?
Yes, that's the normal procedure under the other conflict of interest rules. I'm not sure that applies for the Levine Act disclosures, but that is a good practice to follow the same procedures in the Political Reform Act. Announce it on the record what your conflict is, leave the room for the duration of the discussion and the vote. I do agree it's a recusal, and that's what should be reflected in the minutes rather than an abstention.
No, we're all learning about the Levine Act today. So and I think going forward, I think what a good procedure might be is to look for public comment, for example, and then ask for Levine Act disclosures. And then if there was one, then we could have someone recuse themselves. Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you. And perhaps just since it's in the moment and we could, in fact, make a referral over to our council. What we do at the county, we do require the applicants to file their own Levine Act form and consistent within a few days of the hearing's notice that is included in the packet. And likewise, we also have to sign Levine Act disclosures. We just did that. I'm not really sure. We just, my brain's a little full with the amount of reading I've had to do lately. I actually think our council would be very very happy to be able to help from the County of Napa to provide those forms and copy over. But that actually makes it very simple because it first starts with the applicant. And then we receive it, and then we receive our own simultaneous disclosure that we need to make in writing that then gets disclosed with and posted with the agenda. And then the writing supersedes, and we don't have to do the whole oral thing.
Yeah, I think making it part of the application packet is a good idea for that reason. We do have a disclosure in the agenda as well towards the end, but making it part of the application is a good idea.
Got it. All right. Thank you. I'm going to move us along to item 6B, proposed budget adjustments for fiscal year 2023-24 and fiscal year 24-25. Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item, we're actually doing two things, and they are related. So there are two actions that will be taken, but really consider them one action that will affect not only the previous fiscal year, but the current fiscal year that we are now in. And so first I'll start with the need to adjust last year's budget. And you're probably noticing there have been several budget adjustments for the fiscal year ending 2024. What staff has learned is there is a way to essentially do a better job of anticipating rising costs. And we just learned this procedure this last week. And so we should have been ahead of the curve on this, but essentially what happened is that we have to reimburse the county for administrative services charges. And under administrative services, that's where all of the employee salaries and benefits are found. Everything from Medicare to post-employment benefits, retirement, so on. Up until just last week, staff simply relied on the county to provide us with the quarterly charge. And it's never been an issue to stay within budget. However, this past fiscal year did become an issue. And the reason why the costs have risen are somewhat multi-layered, but there were many things happening with some salaries increasing, which then also affects some of the benefits, since some of those costs tied to benefits are actually tied to our salaries. And we failed to adjust the budget enough sooner to increase allocations to this expense account. And so the long and the short of it is, if we are going to reimburse the county for the full amount that we owe the county, we have to approve this budget adjustment to increase total appropriations within the appropriate budget unit. And so staff is recommending we simply increase administrative services by $6,000, which will be enough to cover the final costs that we owe to the county. And towards this end, staff has now implemented a system where we will be doing a monthly deep dive into all of the sub-accounts that feed into administrative services. We now know how to do it, and we will do this every month. And this last-minute budget adjustment business will be a thing of the past. Now, the other budget adjustment that's being proposed is simply a carryover of the remaining money that we've allocated to a consultant contract with AP Triton to prepare the countywide fire and emergency medical services, MSR. Per county instructions, the way to handle this is we adjust the two budgets to just take that remaining $82,000 or so from one year, move it to the next year. So there's really nothing much more to discuss on that piece. So with all of this in mind, staff recommends the commission approve the two proposed budget adjustments as stated in the staff report, and I would recommend doing that under a single motion.
Thank you. Are there questions for Dr. Freeman?
Yes, I do have a question. So, for example, moving the consulting services forward in the future, when we do the budget, will that just if we have something similar, will that just be a carryover expense, or how will we be able to tell in a new budget that it was from the leftover from the previous year?
A great question, Commissioner Moeller. I'm not sure there's an easy way to build that in. We could certainly add a footnote into our budget sheet that explains it at the bottom, that this is why the numbers look the way they do. When we were doing the budget cycle for this current fiscal year, we did not know how much money would be left over in that consultant contract when we got to June 30th. So there would be no way to figure out the exact dollar amount unless we were creative with how the consultants sent us invoices. We could come up with a solution moving forward there.
But is that like the only category that could happen under? Wouldn't there be other categories too, where maybe a bill just wasn't going to come due until July 1 for services that were rendered in June, or that could happen too? So I'm just wondering, based on the county budget system, how they handle that, and is that something we should be looking at for the future?
Well, great question. Something to think about. Nothing immediately comes to mind.
Okay.
But as an example, there are certain vendors who bill us on a delayed schedule. And
Right.
we may, for example, I'll just say our meeting recording costs. Sometimes we don't get the bill for a couple of months. Well, in that case, we don't need to carry over, so it doesn't really apply. I think the consulting contracts are the only time this really comes up, where we have a specific activity and we budget a certain amount in one fiscal year, and then we may need to roll that over. I think that really only comes up with our consultants helping with study.
Okay, because I remember, I think it was Director Gallagher asked about at our budget meeting where our carryover column was, and I was kind of wondering that. It's like, yeah, how come we don't have one of those? So
There may be something there that staff will. We've only just made the connection we were looking for with the right staff at the county.
okay,
I'll admit I had been asking very pointed questions.
yeah, I know we've had
I
many conversations about.
was not getting
so
yes
little strides.
but now we have the perfect person, wonderful staffer who
Good.
now will go to her with this question. There may have been a simpler way to carry over that we weren't made aware of soon enough.
And then maybe they can even break out salaries and benefits and other admin services, just so we can all see what that means.
Well, that is something we can certainly do.
All right, wonderful, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mueller. Commissioner Leary.
Yes, for bills that we know that won't come due to the next fiscal year, so can't we encumber that money if we know what the amount is and then just clear the budget that way?
So, yes, Commissioner Leary. In fact, we are required to encumber money for any vendors who have a contract, and we know what those vendors will be providing to us. And that is a separate process that shows up in your budget sheets. Well, it shows up in the one that is in your supplemental folder. There's a column for encumbrances, but all of those are zeroed out because that's the end of year budget sheet, and that's part of the process is to zero out encumbrances. That is related to how we decide our budgeting process. But they are two separate things. There's the budget that we allocate, and then there's the encumbrances, which are more specific to a certain vendor.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, yes, it was in reference to the vendors and to way to be able to pay them during the current fiscal year.
And we did have to carry over the encumbrance amount. So we encumbered the $100,000 for AP Triton in the past fiscal year, and we carried over that. We had to do a separate process to do that. So that's already been approved and carried over to the current fiscal year. So the remaining piece is to actually adjust the budget today.
Okay, thank you.
So, great set of questions. I think what I heard was a good follow-up, Director Freeman, for you with this new staff person to help us learn a little bit more about how carryover funds are identified in the next year's budget. So that would be great to hear. So with that, I will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget adjustments in the staff report for 2023, 24, and 24, 25.
Second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Mueller, second by Commissioner Painter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to item C, direction on support services agreement with the County of Napa.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this one as well. So a quick reminder that on June 3rd, the Commission held a public workshop in Yountville to discuss its support services agreement with the County of Napa. The current version of the agreement, which I'll refer to as SSA, is included as attachment 1 to your staff report. The key takeaways are that LAFCO is already an independent government agency, given that the Commission appoints its own executive officer and legal counsel, and also has its own independent office space. Further, the Commission's decisions are not controlled by another local agency. These are some of the issues that some LAFCOs deal with when exploring the topic of independence. And staff believes that it would be most appropriate to take the existing SSA and work closely with the county on amendments that would modernize the agreement and make it more readable without considering an entirely new set of agreements with additional service providers. And so I know the Commission had some questions at the workshop and had asked staff to do more research and bring back more examples and more specific numbers. However, it quickly dawned on us that really it's going to be more trouble and risk than it's worth to attempt a complete overhaul of our service arrangement. And so we believe the current agreement actually works quite well in most cases. There are some inefficiencies with a small agency like LAFCO and adopting the use of a large financial accounting system that suits a larger agency quite well, such as the county with over 1,000 employees. That system is not perfect for our staff, but we can live with it, and it's not a problem. Now, that said, there is one area that the Commission ought to take seriously, and that relates to the staffing arrangement in which LAFCO employees are county employees on loan to LAFCO. And this arrangement essentially means that it's the county with the control, not the Commission, that has the control in terms of LAFCO staff classifications and compensation, and even things like making the decision to hire another staff person to help out. Those are actually decisions that the county ultimately can veto if they choose not to work with us. And so as part of recent outreach from our council to county council, the county reiterated that they are not interested in creating a separate classification structure or unit for county employees on loan to LAFCO, and that the county does have concerns, understandably, financial concerns about potential future efforts to increase LAFCO staff, just given that our funding arrangement for our budget dictates that the county is paying in roughly half of our budget. So certainly get that. Now, none of that is a problem for our staff before you today. So I'm not recommending that we focus on that issue and aim to change it necessarily, but I do welcome the Commission's thoughts on that reality. And so the staff recommendation is for the Commission to discuss the SSA, where we're at today, with staff's latest comments, and consider providing direction to staff on next steps to work with the county and make some amendments. And so this could involve forming an ad hoc subcommittee to advise staff or perhaps it could involve having staff start the conversation, come back to the commission, provide an update, and perhaps we'll know enough then to have more reason to form an ad hoc. But really, I want to turn this over to the commission, get your thoughts, and we'll go from there. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions, discussion, comments. And we do have, are these working? Yes, they are. Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you so much. My question first starts with the executive director as to whose idea was it to ask the county about forming a separate unit for LAFCO employees?
May I?
Yeah, so following the June meeting, I was asked to reach out to county council, which I did. And one of the things I raised was what we could include in the agreement or what the county might be okay with to allow you all to have more flexibility over staffing for hiring more people, for salaries and setting those salaries, given the issues that you all have had in the past with that issue with the county. So she asked what that might look like, and I only gave her 3 options, which was, this could be a different unit. This could be outside of existing units. This could be a different kind of structure or classification. So that was one of the options I gave.
Okay. I just, I want to be very cautious as we move forward that we as the commission, although not the employer, we sit in a very unique position, and association and labor rights and bargaining are employee driven, and so I this is an area that I want to be incredibly cautious that it simply cannot come from the commission that a new bargaining unit is our idea. If the employees want to say that, they can.
Yeah, and
we cannot.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting I have no opinion on the outcome of this. I'm simply trying to give ideas and trying to solve what I understand the issue to be between your interests and the county's interests. Most employer-employer relations policies do have a process for the employer to also modify and create new units. I have not looked at the counties, so I don't know that for sure. But for what it's worth, the county said they're not interested in that, so this isn't part of the discussion. I will add, though, while the county did express concerns about giving you all more flexibility because of the costs, in other words, the initial reaction was, we don't want LAFCO to be able to hire more people because we're going to have to pay for it, and there's a cost involved in that. And as your executive officer acknowledges, that's an understandable concern. We haven't actually discussed any of those details with the county, right? So right now, this is all theoretical. But if there was direction here to try to negotiate something specific, perhaps offering something in the agreement like up to 4 employees or up to 5 employees, or getting into something specific that might give you the opportunity to hire more if that's something you wanted to do. So there was an initial reaction. We're conveying that we do want direction from you all, of course, on the parameters for negotiation here, but we haven't gotten into the weeds, and they are very open to having this discussion. Cheryl was great. County Council, we had a really great discussion. So to the extent you want us to go back with something specific, we're happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Well, another comment I have, and one of the things that we've dealt with kind of over the years. Well, first of all, this is a very old, very out of date. So it just definitely has to be updated. But, and one of the things that needs to go in there as the years go by and some of these general things, I'll just use like travel reimbursement as an example. The policies change over time. So that we really need some, I'll call it a legal provision in there, in that in any of these areas, as things evolve, at least our staff should get notice of that. So the language can be broad enough to generally address things, but if one year they're going to say, you can only, the per diem is $20, and then the next year it's $25 or something. We need some kind of documentation just so we kind of know, what the rules are. And especially, like if the budget system changes, now we're using this software. So keep it general, but have some provisions in there that they don't we're not like second-class citizens that they kind of forget to tell, oh, we changed that, didn't you know? So just kind of a global kind of question. But so I just wanted to kind of go back to Gary talking to the attorney as well. So did you guys kind of talk about any other like general provisions or what you may want to do or not do, or had she even looked at it, or any suggestions or recommendations you would make, because you obviously probably looked at it quite a bit before you talked to her.
Yeah, I had sent it to her before our phone call, so she did have a chance to review it, and I think she did. We didn't go into much specifics at this point. She had offered to revise it based on a more recent agreement for services that the county had with another agency. And so I thought that was a good starting point. She wanted to do that. So she's putting together that agreement, and we'll send it for our review too. And the way I'm currently thinking about this is to create a document that won't require 12 amendments like the one you currently have,
Right.
and that will work for you all going forward for many years. So what you're describing, enough flexibility there in the rates and the reimbursement and the other things, but also looking for opportunities for you all to have some agency over what this agency looks like going forward. And I'm assuming you all would like that. So,
Commissioner Painter.
Yeah, I mean, my comments are really more global and looking at your recommendations in the staff report. I do think it probably is. I would agree that it's probably appropriate time to look at restating and amending the current agreement, clarifying some of those sort of overarching issues, for example, rather than just talking about the section in LAFCO, but really clarifying that LAFCO is an independent agency and putting it in the agreement. And whether or not you need to have a subcommittee, I kind of have mixed feelings on that. I think at this stage, we're probably not looking at creating certainly a new unit within the county system to create employees, or even necessarily taking all that on ourselves. I think we are at a point where continuing the staffing with the county is probably the right direction. So if we can update the agreement without the formation of a subcommittee, I think that would be my direction, just so that you're not creating too many things that you have to herd and manage. But I think it is time to clean it up and move it forward and make it work for, the next several cycles.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Painter. Those are the comments are along my thinking as well. What I'm hearing as feedback, I appreciate this point that this is just an old document, so bringing it up to date, that policies change, somehow building in an expectation of more ongoing education or communication between the county and staff about specific policies so that our staff is updated. Gary, your point that we don't have 12 amendments, I think also makes sense, and just clarifying overall. But also, I think those, when we think about what is the problem we're trying to solve, it seems like those are the issues that this commission wants to take on at this point. So I would agree. I think, Gary, you're probably the best person to march this forward as opposed to setting up another ad hoc. Is there other thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with that. I just don't want to completely. I think let's go ahead. That's going to be a big enough job. I don't know how long that's going to take, but it'll probably take a while. But just I want to still reserve for further discussion how we do have to kind of deal with our own employees, and sometimes the pay levels that are going to make us competitive may not fall within those categories that they have, and sometimes I don't really know how much work might come up in the future that we have to do, and to say that I think also the amount that each area pays, is that prescribed by CKH? Or is it just the board members?
What do you mean by what?
Well, since the county pays half, that is a
Yeah, that's set by
prescribed
state law.
Yeah, that's set by state law. But and it usually makes sense because a lot of the annexations aren't typically between cities; they're a lot of times related to the county. So you can make arguments that if we have a lot of those, they get more services. But so anyway, but I think we just need to have. I just know there is some kind of a solution to kind of this. So I don't want to say, okay, we talked about it. We're never going to talk about it again. I'm not ready to talk about it now. I think we have a lot of other work to do, but I think it's going to be probably still on the list for more conversation.
Yeah, and maybe one way to handle that. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Khan.
So I have a question. When we do major MSRs, we bring in consultants. Now, you mentioned earlier that you might have an issue about the county not approving staff. Are they going to have control over consultants? How does that work?
Short answer is no, because you all set a budget and then send that out to the different agencies who then pay their share, and you communicate with them on what that adopted budget is. So your adopted budget is what sets the amount paid by the different agencies, and you budget for the consultants each year. It's just a unique function of who is the technical employer of the staff that creates the other issue.
Great question. I guess what I was thinking about too, because I like your point that we don't want to let an issue drop when we have an opportunity to discuss it. So I think one thing I would add to your list, Gary, is in your discussions to bring up the situations that we've been working through as a commission and staff over the past year, and how do we in this updated agreement build in the most flexibility for LAFCO. And so that's a priority for us, even when we're not specifically saying we're looking to bring on more staff right now or change a staff position or situation.
Because we actually found out that we had a much larger consulting budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so our actual overall budget at that time was higher because we had a lot of consultants doing MSRs and a lot of other stuff. So when we found out, when we brought somebody in-house, that, we can not only control, the timeline better, but it was more economical. So sometimes more staff might seem like it's costing you more, but the net effect actually might be lower. You just have to work through the situation.
So do you need a motion and a vote from us on this, or is this enough direction? Commissioner Leary.
I guess I'm troubled by the statement or on the county that says, well, we don't want to pay more. I'm bothered by that because we pay 50% of your budget and we don't want to increase your staffing or do this because we pay half of that. I look at it, what does it take for us to do our job versus how much? Yeah, I think our agencies, if they want the work done, then it's going to cost to do that. And I can't accept the reason that, well, I'm sorry, I don't want to pay anymore. So, yeah. So I just got to look at it from what does it cost to do our jobs? And if we're supposed to do service reviews and some of them get done and some of them just linger there forever and ever, I think there's got to be more teeth in terms of doing these things because this is what we're supposed to do. And we are protecting the public interest. And that's why I feel I sit here, and I know you all sit here because of that. And I just was troubled by that statement because it can say, well, basically, we don't want you to do your jobs because we don't want to pay more. That's how I took it. I may be taking it wrong, but I just have to express how I felt about that. And I agree with Commissioner Mueller that, yes, we need to look at what is down the line. We need to look at what needs to be done, and we get to figure that out and set our budget. And I guess it's up to us to convince the agencies that we need that money. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Leary.
So we're sending Gary in to deal with all the low-hanging fruit.
Some of the mid-levy.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, so I understand direction. Executive officer has asked for a motion to formalize it, but it might be helpful if I just read back what I understand the direction is, and then you all can vote on that if I'm correct, or add something if need be. So it's an overall update to the agreement, an eye towards avoiding the need for future amendments. So creating a document that will work, not just for right now, but also in the future years. A procedure to facilitate future communications and collaboration between the county, maybe some kind of contractual process, I'm thinking, for working together. And then build in staffing flexibility to the extent possible. And that's regarding the issues of pay, duties, and additional staff, and to look for those opportunities. So county council is currently drafting. I will receive a draft from them and then review and think through these issues. And then, of course, I'll work with your executive officer. We might come back and get more direction from you all before responding formally to county council.
Gary, if I can say, I like slipping modernize in there. I
Okay.
like that term.
Okay.
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Yeah. Updating is up, but modernize.
Done.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm seeing nods to that listing. So we'll go ahead and were you looking for a motion?
Yes, please, Madam Chair,
Okay.
just for the record.
Perfect. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to update the current SSA agreement as per the items that Gary listed. Updated overall, reduce opportunity for any future amendments by having general language, and also try to increase facilitation between county and LAFCO. Have some general discussions about staffing and anything that will give our attorney any way that we can modernize it from this old document. We're open to hearing his suggestions. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right. That brings us to item 6D, Cal LAFCO nominations and annual conference items.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This item will be more brief. So every year, each LAFCO is asked to appoint voting delegates, one regular and one alternate, for the annual elections that happen at the Cal LAFCO conference. And the voting delegates can be staff or commissioners, regulars or alternate commissioners are eligible. And so that's the first item that we definitely need to address. The second item has to do with Cal LAFCO board nominations. And this year, since Napa is in the coastal region, the election that is relevant for us is there are two seats that are open. There's a county member seat and a special district member seat representing the coastal region. And these are 2-year terms. And of course, we don't want to forget that our commission already has 2 members on the Cal LAFCO board of directors. So Napa already has 2 out of 16 total seats. And just this morning, staff received comments from San Mateo LAFCO Commissioner Virginia Chang Kirali, who intended to join us for today's meeting and will be well, unfortunately, there was an emergency and she could not be here, a legitimate emergency, not an excuse. And now she will be running for the Cal LAFCO Board Coastal Region Special District seat. And the letter that she provided to us is included in your supplemental folder, essentially showing her great energy and interest in the opportunity to serve. Should we support her? Ultimately, the vote will come down to whoever our voting delegate is. So you do not need to make a decision to support her or not today, but just be aware that this will be a contested race for that special district seat. The county member, I believe, is running for re-election. Her name is Wendy Root Askew, if I got that right. I hope I did. And so I'm not aware of any competitors yet, The commission is more than welcome to nominate a county member if you're interested. But staff would recommend that we don't need another seat on the LAFCO board, but hey, you may see it differently. And if you want 3 seats, go for it. Regulars or alternates can be nominated. And then the last item for this action item has to do with award nominations. And that's one that we did quite well last year. And staff can't immediately come up with someone or something to nominate for this year. But if the commission has any ideas, staff welcomes them, and this is your opportunity to make a nomination there. So with all of that in mind, I'll turn this item back to the commission for action.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make a note that Supervisor Askew is, I know Commissioner Ramos and Commissioner Gallagher and myself all know her and feel like she's someone that we could reach out to advocate on an issue or something like that. So I'm happy to support her continuing to serve in that role. And I think how well this commission did last year with the prizes is quite remarkable. So I don't see a need for us to throw something back in the ring on that front. But so those are my 2 comments, but I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the voting member as well.
Well, I'd be more than happy to throw my hat in the ring to be the voting member. I'm pretty familiar, kind of going up, being on the board for several years and going through the ranks of the executive committee. I've seen a lot of interesting people kind of come and go, and some that just keep staying and staying and staying. So anyway, I'm making a big plea for, a lot of people to really kind of throw their hat in the ring for running for this board. I think one of the really exciting things I've been able to be on this year is the Ad Hoc Modernization Committee. And we're really making some pretty sweeping changes with LAFCO. And so far, they've always been, we've done a lot of outreach, but they've met with full board approval. So we're pretty excited about some of the changes, and more are coming. So just a quick hand raise that I'd be happy to be the voting member.
All right, so we have Commissioner Mueller throwing her hat in the ring. Commissioner Painter, Commissioner Ramos, any other comments?
I was just going to go ahead and make a recommendation to support Commissioner Moeller and then Commissioner Leary, as we need an alternate, correct?
Correct.
I was going to ask a question regarding that. As the elections chair, is that a conflict?
Oh, great question, Commissioner Leary. So that I do not have an answer for you. That would be a LAFCO question. We don't have Renee in the room to answer that.
Well, if it's not a conflict, then I will accept the alternate. Yes, but if it's a conflict, then
It will be a conflict if you're actually tallying up the votes, because what you're really not even supposed to do is actually be present in the coastal caucus.
I can't even know.
Well, you have to kind of go through all of them, because you have to oversee the elections in all of them So since you've got, you're a chair, but you have a team, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you just move around your team so that they don't go to their own caucus.
Okay.
It just is our best attempt at transparency during the voting.
Left our caucus, you had to leave, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it would be odd if you came back and actually voted.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
So-
that's only if something happened to you.
Right. And
Right, but let's not, Right.
who else is planning on going?
Well, that was going to be my question. Who else is going?
I'm hoping to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is anyone else hoping to go? Attend?
Cal Cities is at the
Yeah.
same time.
Cal Cities, yeah, that's
Well,
really.
I would modify.
I was going to say
a motion
Yosemite, but
to have Commissioner Moeller as voting member and Chair Cottrell as alternate.
I'm happy to take that.
So you're definitely going?
Yep.
Okay, great.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so there is and we can take those all together, E.O. Freeman?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay.
Just one clarification. I'm not sure but so Wendy is the county member, because Mike McGill is the special district member
Correct.
on the
Yes.
board.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So we're all sure. Okay.
All right, so there is a nomination of Commissioner Moeller as voting member, myself as the alternate, and we're going to pass on other nominations at this point. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Leary, second by Commissioner Ramos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And now we are at 6E, considering Leadership Napa Valley sponsorship. Leo Freeman.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. As part of this item, the Commission will consider becoming a sponsor for Leadership Napa Valley, or LNV, at a cost of $3,000, which would allow us to participate in the program's Government Day. I'm guessing many of us in this room have gone through the program. I personally have. It's a wonderful way for emerging leaders or existing leaders to really learn the ins and outs of Napa Valley and what makes this place work and what makes it so wonderful. This would also be a terrific way to engage with other emerging leaders in the community and provide education about LAFCO's mission and purpose. That said, staff is operating at reduced capacity at the moment, and this may not be the ideal time to take on additional activities. However, this would be a minimal commitment, so it's certainly doable, and staff would agree to participate if the Commission thinks it's a great idea for this year. Another item here to consider is that $3,000 cost would effectively be paid by the county and the 5 cities in town. So staff believes at a minimum there should be some communication with the city managers and county CEO ahead of making a decision about how to spend this $3,000. Although that's not absolutely necessary, we can make this decision now without doing that. But to summarize, staff feels it's a great opportunity, and we're pleased to be thought of for the Government Day. However, just given the workload and the minimal capacity we're dealing with, staff recommends that the Commission discuss the opportunity and make a decision for this year, yes or no. And if the answer is no, then staff recommends the Commission also discuss its interest in participating in future years. And as part of that, we may want to do some outreach to the 6 land use authorities about that intention. So I'll pass it back to the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Commissioner Painter.
Sure, I'll start. As I'm hitting my 20th anniversary of LMV, and I served on the board. I'm very familiar with LMV. 2 questions. First question is whether or not LAFCO has ever participated in the past. Question number 1. And question number 2, did we just get an invoice without asking for one?
Great questions, Commissioner Painter. So answer to number 1, LAFCO as an organization has not, to my knowledge, participated, although myself and a former executive officer, at least one former executive officer, went through the program, but that's certainly not the same. The other question, the answer is no, we did not ask for this. It came to me, which I thought was actually great because it's something I've thought about how we should at least be considered as one of the Government Day participants. Came to me from Kate Miller with NVTA. Presumably she's on either the board or some leadership role there behind the scenes.
Yeah. Dan Schwartz was in my class.
Oh.
At any rate, I think at this point, my feeling would be that I would pass on it this year. We can look at it in future years. I know for the city of Napa, we participate. I think the county participates as well. And certainly if there was an opportunity to come and speak to the class, you could consider that and be open. But we have done such a detailed, thorough job with our budget that right now, I think spending that money is not really responsible.
And I agree with that too. I think I'd like to hold off a little bit, especially since all of the jurisdictions except the public, for Director Leary, we do already participate in that, and I have, being a mayor, I've been asked to kind of attend Government Day and help out. And I think NVTA is the only one separate agency that I've ever kind of seen there. So, there's so much that a lot of the class really want to talk about city government, for better or worse, and it goes really quick. And because there's the county and all the cities who kind of talk a little bit about what they're doing and how things work, and the students ask a lot of questions. And I think there might be a different way for LAFCO to really. I think we've got so much outreach to do now, just with our jurisdictions and our other constituents and our other stakeholders, that I'd really want to focus on that. Not to say that the students aren't deserving, but I really want to. I think and I do agree that we do need to get more information out about LAFCO, but I'd put our efforts at probably something more obvious at this time.
Yeah. Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with Commissioner Mueller. We do need to get our information out, but this isn't our audience. We need to get actually the jurisdictions themselves to understand what we do. I really see government. I'm not an LNV grad, but having attended Government Day a number of times, Government Day is a primer. And LAFCO is in the weeds. Even if you try and do a LAFCO primer, it is absolutely in the weeds of policy and land use work. I think it would be different. So to your second question of what do we look at in future years, I think it would be very different if this were like a citizens academy dealing with public service entirely. I know American Canyon runs a citizens academy. I think that would be entirely different.
Yes,
but having to share the stage with the cities, the town, and the county on one day, I don't see that as being the best use of our time, nor our resources as we run so lean. If anything, I'd say being on the lookout for Citizen Academy participation from our member jurisdictions would be great. But I don't see us on government within a greater leadership academy actually being a good fit.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. And I'm just going to say I've already asked Vice Chair Leary. I have a hard stop at 3:15, so you'll be ready to take over. I agree with everything that's been said here. And I think, Commissioner Mueller, you were diplomatic in saying you think we should look at a different way to engage. I would say we need to look at a cheaper way to engage. And I appreciate, Brendan, that you were happy to receive that invoice. I would be a little bit taken aback because our budget is not that big, right? And it doesn't, for us, I don't think it makes sense to do that spend. So I wrote down, I think visits to chambers, city councils, Rotary, Kiwanis, other service clubs is more bang for our buck. And it lets you and staff get out there in the community a little bit more directly. So do you need a motion from us, or is that direction enough?
Yeah, I don't think a motion's required. It looks like there's consensus not to pursue that this year.
Okay, great. All right, then we will move on to item 7, the EO report.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of time, I'm going quicker than I intended. So some quick hits. The unincorporated islands keep coming up again in conversation. Just, it's out there. People are thinking about it. And just a quick note that in my research, I uncovered an Attorney General opinion from 2012 from Kamala Harris related to islands, actually. So not a political statement, just a note that it was quite interesting to see the opinion there from Ms. Harris, helping us understand exactly how islands are defined and how the streamlined island annexation process is intended to work. So that was a fun find. Next hit, The update on the water consolidation group that has been meeting. It's been a group of executive officers, including myself, with the UC Berkeley researchers who prepared the report on some of the challenges and opportunities for LAFCOs and the state to work together on small water system consolidations. Well, any water system consolidations really are fair game in that discussion. We will meet again sometime in the next few weeks. My next comment relates to the LAFCO conference. So I am personally leading up a general session, which will be on the Friday of the conference. And I know Commissioner Ramos won't be able to see that one. You'll have to cut it short. And I feel bad I couldn't get this on an earlier day when you're there, but it was the only open slot. And so this is a water education for government leaders session. I already have a panel that has tentatively agreed to speak, with 3 of the speakers actually being WELLOs, the Water Education for Latino Leaders, graduates of their great program. And then I also have someone from the Water Consolidation Group, the UC Berkeley research team, who agreed. So I think that can really provide a great framework for how the world of water works and how it relates to LAFCO. So looking forward to that. Also keeping tabs on habitat and nature conservation planning efforts, which is not a direct LAFCO issue, but I've been receiving updates from a group that is involved there, and I believe there is an item on tomorrow's County Board of Supervisors meeting where there's going to be speakers on that topic, and I intend to keep tabs on that, see if there may be some LAFCO involvement down the road. Another item of note is that the county's farm worker housing needs and impacts assessment has been released, and I've been waiting for that to resume work on the county service area number 4 municipal service review and sphere update. So that will be resuming soon, and we should be on track for a draft CSA4 report as early as the Commission's December 2nd meeting. Finally, just want to comment, I've had meetings with the St. Helena City Manager and St. Helena Vice Mayor to discuss appropriate timing to kick off the next MSR for St. Helena. It sounds like they will be happy to work with us if we wait until after January 1st. So they want the new city council in place, which makes sense. So that's all I have for my EO report. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And I hope I was not rushing you. That was helpful to get bullet points on all of those things. And I'm glad you mentioned the farm worker housing needs study. We got a great report about it at the county, and it's a very beautifully put together document and really informative. So I encourage people to take a look at that. So Commissioner comments or requests for future agenda items?
I would just, since Brendan kind of brought up islands, and I know we've talked about that here a long, long time. That seems like, the county has always been supportive, but now we have new supervisors. And my impression I've always got was the city of Napa thought it would cost too much. And so maybe we should have really a workshop and really kind of talk through what the issues are. I mean, there are a lot of islands in the city of Napa. They don't all have to be annexed right away. Some of them may not want streets and sidewalks. Maybe we can take it piecemeal. But maybe with the 3 stakeholders and having a workshop, we could, come up with some plan instead of just kicking it down the road, because it's not going to go away.
Commissioner Painter.
Yeah, I would be very supportive of having some sort of a workshop. I just want to clarify that the city of Napa's position is not that it costs too much. In fact, we put out information about what can and cannot be done with annexation. It does not necessarily mean that an annexed area gets sidewalks or gets streetlights or gets anything. There's a host of various issues, but I think to me, the cooperative arrangement and the way to move this forward is to work together with the county, with the city, and with LAFCO in partnership.
And that's good, because that's new information for me too. So I think I'll be fun to be in that workshop as well. Get new information and I think it's really good transparency for the public to know that we're really having this conversation and get everybody, at least with the understanding of what we all know now. So,
Commissioner Leary.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Since I've been here, the topic of islands come and go. It's a hot topic and then it's not a hot topic. So I think it's important to get the stakeholders together and talk about this and talk about a strategy, because it'll just keep, I can see no end to this. Okay, people are talking about islands again. Well, and then they stop talking about islands. So
until they
Let's-
talk about it again.
yeah.
So that sounds like, from hearing from Commissioners Painter, Moeller, and Leary, some general direction to look at that item, but particularly this point about doing it in concert with the city and the county. So, great. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Look at that, 3:13.
Got 2 minutes.
I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting and say good to see everyone. Thanks.
All right.